see. Thank you, that is all.
Dark rides have been a staple at Disney parks since the late 19th century, and it's not hard to see why. Usually consisting of small vehicles winding through black-lit scenic elements, dark rides can be both cheap and effective at telling a story. Oh, sorry, I think I was caught in the Twilight Zone there for a second. Hello everybody, it's me, Offhand Disney, and today I'm here to talk to you about the many different dark rides you'll be able to find in a Disney park. Disney's dark rides date back to Disneyland's original opening in 1955. Those attractions have become classics and favorites among fans, but as the decades passed, technology has improved a ton, and today's dark rides have taken a shift toward immersion that requires bigger budget. We'll start at Fantasyland at Disneyland for my favorite dark ride of them all, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. This classic Fantasyland car ride opened with Disneyland in 1955. In the film The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, the titular character, Mr. Toad, finds himself enamored with the idea of driving a fast car around his country, but gets in a lot of trouble along the way. Dark rides usually feature a lot of sharp turns and fast transitions between scenes, so it was an easy adaptation to do Mr. Toad's Wild Ride for Disneyland, particularly the scarier scenes. As you run away from the police of London, you find yourself careening through a TNT factory, which sets off a chain of explosions that brings down a brick wall. Pretty intense. After your day in court and being found guilty of many different motor vehicle related crimes, you drive headfirst into a train and descend into the depths of hell. The hell room in this ride is heated and features the judge, now dressed up as the devil, and a handful of cackling rubber bouncy demons and a smoking dragon. I'm sure you can see why it's my favorite now, but there is one other dark ride that I think is a bit scarier than Mr. Toad. Who am I kidding? It's the scariest ride in all of Disneyland, and it's not even close. That's in the name of the ride. Snow White's Scary Adventures, except this time we're going to move to the extinct attraction in the Magic Kingdom. Though it's sadly no longer with us, Snow White's Scary Adventures was a staple at the Magic Kingdom in Walt Disney World, and is maybe the most well known for the many changes it saw during its time at the park. The original version, before the name was changed to Snow White's Scary Adventures, is the most terrifying of all. Let's check out the worst of the worst here and get a feel for why the ride had been toned down in later years. One of the scenes features the evil queen turning away from her magic mirror to reveal her old beggar witch disguise. Her arms are stiff and outstretched above her head in a really unnatural-ish pose, and her voice is very screechy. Unlike later versions, this reveal is done in a very abrupt and quick turn that surely scared many kids and adults alike. Definitely scared me. After leaving the dungeon where the evil queen poisons an apple, you enter another area at the edge of a forest. Before you cross into the trees, the evil queen speeds out from behind a wall in a boat to scream and cackle at you. The crocodiles made of logs and scary-faced trees are really grotesque in this version, and you can hear echoes of the queen's laughter as you make your way through the forest. Entering the dwarf's cottage surely seems like a relief, but there is something wrong. A group of woodland animals peek through a window in fear, and all of the furniture in the cottage is decorated with faces of terror. The dwarves make their way up the staircase to find Snow White, and the evil queen leans through a window to offer you the poisoned apple. When you leave the cottage, you're back in the woods where the evil queen jumps out from behind a tree with the apple in hand. You duck into the dwarf's mind to get away, but she follows you again, this time tipping a large gem down on top of you. The attraction ends with flashing lights and the implication that you've been killed, right before you're spat back out into the unloading area. Basically, the entire ride was very scary, and it's not hard to see why the name was changed to reflect that, so people knew what to expect. But moving back to Disneyland now, another Fantasyland dark ride that's not quite as scary as Snow White's Adventures is Pinocchio's Daring Journey. Pinocchio's Daring Journey was planned for Disneyland in 1976 and was meant to replace the Mickey Mouse Club Theater. The project was shelved and ultimately came to fruition almost 10 years later in 1983 when the attraction was built for Tokyo Disneyland. A month later, it opened at Disneyland in California, and you wouldn't be able to tell it wasn't around since opening day. It seems to fit in very well with all the other Fantasyland dark rides. Considering how dark the film gets, this attraction is more lighthearted than you might expect, but it does have its scary moments. In the beginning, we see Pinocchio dancing and singing with a pair of marionettes at Stromboli's puppet theater, but this lively scene doesn't last too long. We're quickly taken backstage where Pinocchio is being kept prisoner in a birdcage. Stromboli tries to trap us in the cage along with Pinocchio, but Jiminy warns us of the trap and leads the car down an alley into safety. The ride then takes us to Pleasure Island, but after leaving the wonders of Pleasure Island, you catch a child turning into a donkey while Pinocchio looks on. Moving through an alleyway behind Pleasure Island, you hear cracks of whips and see donkey children crying to go home. While the rest of the ride is pretty comfortable and not too scary. Staying at Disneyland, we head behind Fantasyland to Mickey's Toontown, a land that features one very popular dark ride. Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin is a fantastic mix of elements of both old dark rides and the kind of detail we'd expect from a newer attraction. After winding through the powerhouse, you see Roger being electrocuted, followed by a massive explosion. There's a lot of banging and strobe light effects in this section of the ride. The gag factory is then filled with gags that might be funny if they weren't popping out at you at a million miles an hour. A pair of Jack-in-the-Boxes dance and cackle as you pass by, and weasels tie ropes to crates and send them toppling down on your heads. Nothing is funnier to the weasels than head trauma, I guess. Now, from great examples of old classic dark rides, we go to a great example of newer, more detailed dark rides, Indiana Jones in Adventureland. Call it what you will, the Indiana Jones ride, the Indiana Jones Adventure, or Indiana Jones in the Temple of the Forbidden Eye, doesn't make a difference. This is one of the best dark rides Disney has ever made. This dark ride is able to add some more emphasis to scary parts through its use of articulated vehicles. Corners seem a little sharper and you can feel the car lurch as you speed away from trouble. After leaving a hallway filled with skeletons popping out at you, you end up in the dark. And luckily for us, the headlights of the car you're driving in seem to start malfunctioning. And to make matters worse, the wall is lined with tons of creepy crawly bugs. Jets of small air shoot at you from all directions as you make your way out, making you think the bugs are starting to jump onto your car and onto you. You then cross a bridge that almost gives out under the weight of your car and turns into a hallway guarded by a giant, lunging cobra. It's a good thing Indy's there to get you out of that troubling situation. Just kidding, he hates snakes, so he leaves you to your own devices. Thanks. Another very similar, almost identical ride to the Indiana Jones adventure in Disneyland is Dinosaur at Disney's Animal Kingdom. Dinosaur is almost identical to Indiana Jones Adventure in that it uses the same type of ride vehicle to enhance the experience, and the tracks are almost the same too. You're tasked with going back in time right before the dinosaurs are wiped from existence to bring back a specific dinosaur specimen, an iguanodon. It's a race to beat the clock, and to not get eaten in the process. Near the beginning of your journey back in time, you encounter a Carnotaurus, which seems to find you pretty appetizing. As you wind through the area searching for your iguanodon, it pursues you closely until you come face to face with it near the end of the attraction. You see its entire body as it roars at you and then lunges at you right before you time jump back to present day. The full body animatronic is massive and terrifying, and so it's important that a backup animatronic is present in the attraction in case the main one breaks down. It's that important. And in the spirit of Halloween and my favorite Disney ride of all time, you really couldn't expect us to skip the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland, could you? It's an actual haunted mansion, so it's bound to be scary, right? This dark ride is filled with a lot of elements that have us hoping we won't be the 1000th happy haunt. But, you know, we all kind of hope that we are the 1000th after all sometimes, right? Can't be the only one. Let's take a look at the attic scene specifically. It's here where we meet the culprit behind many of the ghosts inside the mansion. As you slowly creep through the attic, a piano clangs out a tune, and you move past portraits of couples. But something's gone wrong. They shift and change to reveal the husbands without their heads. You realize the room is decorated with dusty wedding decor, and at the end of the room is a ghostly bride with a hatchet confessing to the murders. Constance Hatchaway, the attic bride. Past her is my second favorite ghost in the Haunted Mansion, the Hatbox Ghost, although many consider him to be their favorite ghost in the Haunted Mansion because his head disappears and then reappears in his hatbox as he laughs to himself. What do you think he did to make the bride so angry? Is he just a fellow resident of the Haunted Mansion, or maybe one of her beheaded husbands? We'll never really know. But I know for a fact that the Haunted Mansion is simultaneously the creepiest and the best, most immersive ride at Disneyland. Happy Halloween, everybody.
Thank you so much, Offhand Disney. It was awesome having you with us again. But that's not all. Let's continue with our Halloween special and tell you some more scary scenes at Disney Dark Rides. Splash Mountain, Disneyland. Brer Rabbit gets himself in all sorts of trouble as you follow alongside him on his journey, but it all comes to a head as you make your way up the final hill on Splash Mountain. Brer Fox has Brer Rabbit tied up and crying for help, and past them is a Mama Rabbit and Mama Possum singing to their children about the dangers of the laughing place. Things aren't looking so good as you start to ascend the lift hill. Above your head are two vultures making jokes about your imminent demise. As you make your way up further, Brer Rabbit can be seen tied up on your left, shouting for help. Brer Fox's shadow is projected on the wall behind him as he decides if he wants to roast or hang the rabbit. Quick, go over the drop and make your escape! Phantom Manor, Disneyland, Paris. Phantom Manor is well known for being the darkest version of the Haunted Mansion attractions, and it's not hard to see why. The lore for the ride is extensive and tells the story of a young woman whose father didn't want to see her wed. He killed her first 4 suitors one by one until he himself died in an earthquake. Beyond the grave, he came back as the Phantom and before his daughter's wedding, lured her fiancé into the manor's attic and hung him from the ceiling. His daughter stayed in the manor for the rest of her life, haunted by the wedding that never happened, and the phantom of her father leering over her. After you exit her boudoir, where she sits crying in her wedding gown with her father watching her from inside a mirror, you come face to face with the Phantom himself. He's standing outside the building and cackling as he gestures you towards a freshly dug and glowing grave. You start descending backwards and witness skeletons pushing out of their coffins. It's been said that if you travel inside the canyon caused by the earthquake that killed the Phantom, there's a ghostly version of Thunder Mesa. It looks like that's where you're headed. As you enter the town, the mayor tips his hat and his head towards you, as he offers you the key to the city and the chance to be the 1000th happy haunt. An apothecary tastes a potion and glows green, and a honky-tonk show is playing at the local bar. On the outskirts of town, the Phantom has something prepared for you. It's a noose hanging from a tree, and underneath it, a large open casket. He's cackling at you again, beckoning you to the afterlife. You didn't pick up any hitchhikers in the town, did you? Pirates of the Caribbean, Disneyland. Pirates are burning and looting a portside town, and it's up to you to find a way out of there. One of the final rooms in this attraction makes use of a common dark ride trick, making you think props are going to come tumbling down on your heads. Your boat makes its way through a burning warehouse as pirates have a shootout on either side of you. The wooden beams above you are slowly burning and creaking under their own weight. A few barrels dangling from the ceiling by a rope are hanging above you as you skirt past the shootout. It feels like you're going to lose your head one way or another. Mystic Manor, Hong Kong, Disneyland. Mystic Manor is Hong Kong Disneyland's approach to the Haunted Mansion, and it's significantly different. This manor is filled with precious artifacts gathered by its owner, and they became possessed by magic after the owner's monkey touches an antique music box. At first, this magic seems friendly, but their force threatens to tear the manor apart if you don't act quickly. After you escape a barrage of blow darts, you and a few other ride vehicles enter a round room. In the center is a giant statue that raises a scepter and begins a whirlwind that rips the artwork off the walls. Your ride vehicles spin as the room begins to tear apart from the heavy winds. Sliding into the next room, you can see all of the magic making its way back to the music box as it closes. You're safe again, just keep your hands to yourself and don't touch the artifacts on the tour, alright? The Great Movie Ride, Disney's Hollywood Studios. The now-defunct Great Movie Ride was a must-do on any trip to Disney's Hollywood Studios, or as it was known when the park opened, Disney MGM Studios. It combined the ride style of a dark ride with the live cast member and commentary of the Jungle Cruise. Nowadays, it feels like an omen of the IP takeovers to come to the parks in the next few decades. When Michael Eisner was CEO of the Disney Company and spearheading the new additions to Walt Disney World, he had his heart set on including something from the Alien franchise. The plan to translate the series into an attraction at Magic Kingdom fell through and became Extraterrestrial Alien Encounter, but that wasn't the end of it. The alien and Sigourney Weaver's character, Ellen Ripley, were featured in a famous scene in the Great Movie Ride. You enter the space fighter ship USCSS Nostromo, as she hides from the alien attacking the ship. It's very dark, and the narrator warns you that there haven't been many survivors, and to stay where you are. Ripley gives another warning as the alien draws closer, an alarm sound as it descends down from the ceiling towards you. This was the only scene from the Great Movie Ride taken from a scary movie, so it sometimes felt out of place. It was hard to forget though. Which one of these do you think is the scariest? Let us know in the comments. Thank you so much again to Offhand Disney for being here today, And we wish you a happy Halloween, everyone.